the kind of joy and confusion and shock and pain that only a game developer can feel.
I mean, the Switch hardware is pretty insane too, like what it can do.
Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they're mobile games.
So like I really enjoyed No Man's Sky when it came out, and nobody else did.
So now you can double goose on the loose.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's funny you mentioned piranhas earlier, because I actually have a petrified piranha on my desk.
Is it on a stand and everything?
On a stand, yes.
That's weird. You just kind of unlocked a core memory for me, because I think my neighbor had the same exact thing. Like just sitting on by his computer desk.
Like your childhood neighbor? Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the picture that I have.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Speaking of core memories, dude, I've been playing Zelda, the new one. Have you touched it?
Nope. I don't know anything about it other than that you can build stuff in it, and like a whole bunch of people online have been building just kid demolishers, like they just throw children into like these machines that just like either like smash them or use lasers to laser them to bits.
Yeah. So that's only one part of the game.
Oh, yeah. There's more?
Dude, like, yeah, right? Like, the game is just amazing and huge. And, like, it makes Breath of the Wild look like a prototype. Like, it really does. It feels like by the end of playing that game, I just beat it today. And by the end of playing it, I was like, Breath of the Wild just feels like a prototype now. I am just blown away. Absolutely floored by how amazing and fun that game was, and how deep the mechanics go, without like you said, like there's a whole part of the internet now dedicated to people building stuff in the game, and that's just like, it's like a thing in it where you can kind of interface with it as much as you want. It's a great game design thing about it. I'll go ahead and say that now. You wanted to play like you're just MacGyver, you can play that way.
Yeah.
If you want to really, if you don't like the MacGyver part, which I kind of don't. I don't like futzing with stuff and building and things. Like, it was kind of fun, and you had to do it some, but not a lot. And so, like, I liked it because I got to do it as much as I thought it was fun, and it did not make me do it any more than I thought it was fun. But it did kind of force me to do it a few times, and I found it fun. Extra, like, when I wasn't expecting to find it fun, which is great. And then I left it alone most of the time. Like, I could just play the game I wanted to play that didn't have to futz with all the building stuff most of the game.
Yeah.
But other people can just play the entire game like you're just MacGyver, and it's just up to them, up to you.
Yeah, no, it's because Breath of the Wild has like a very great sandbox. Like,
yes.
Take for instance like a puzzle, right? They don't put invisible walls anywhere. You know, they give you a puzzle, and they give you the mechanics to like solve that puzzle with your like your inventory and like the tools that you have and abilities that you have. And then they don't force you to go a certain route. Like, you can solve the puzzle however you want. If you want to like blast yourself with a grenade all the way to the finish, then just go ahead and do it. You know, it's not going to punish you for that.
Yeah, because they only have one design. Like, if we were programming this, if I were programming it, I would say, like, the only thing that has to happen is this ball needs to intersect with this collision.
Mm-hmm.
And if it does that, then the door will open.
Yeah, there's no steps. You're not like, okay, first push the ball through here. Okay, now that objective is complete.
Yeah,
now push the ball over here. Now that objective. No, it's not that, and that's what makes it great, because it utilizes the sandbox that they've made to make great puzzles. You know, because there's no restrictions on how to solve them.
Yeah, and it's a physics sandbox, and it's a chemistry sandbox, and it's also
and also it's not just the puzzles. You're not just using those abilities and stuff to solve puzzles. You're using that to navigate through the environment. Like, take for instance fire. You know, you can use fire to cook things. You can use it to set things on fire. You can use it to imbue your sword. You know, you can. It's a tool. Like, fire is a property
will have your
that
mind
everything
blown.
can have.
You can craft weapons in the new one.
Oh, cool. Well, how does that work?
Out of monster parts.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and out of all sorts of things. You can craft weapons out of other weapons. And at first, oh gosh, just beat it today, and I've just been digesting it the whole time. And it's like
Nice.
one of the coolest things was the weapon building thing. So like, the classic, like, WoW. If you remember, maybe explain it for the listeners how they flopped the rest mechanic from the, like, forget what they used to call it. I don't really play WoW, but I know it's a famous game design example of flipping a punishment to a reward to receive the same result.
I haven't heard this one. I did play WoW during Cataclysm. I started playing during Cataclysm and played for a few years.
Oh, they used to, like, take away your XP you could gain if you played too long to try to encourage healthier play cycles.
Oh.
And people hated that because they would play.
Yeah,
and
of course.
And so they swapped it to where you got XP bonuses if you rested your character.
Yeah. That's actually like a standard now.
Yeah, like it's like the token, like, this is how you flop, take punishments, turn them into rewards. And like, so Zelda, the Breath of the Wild, like, what was the most annoying mechanic? It wasn't annoying. It wasn't a bad mechanic. It was a good
climbing?
mechanic.
I mean, climbing isn't that bad. What were you gonna say?
Well, weapon breaking.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And what it was is you kind of fell in love with your gear in Zelda games, especially if you're like me and you're a Zelda nut. You're a little more standard gamer Zelda, I think. I'm
standard gamer Zelda.
Yeah, like I think you've played several titles and beaten them, but like, you're not a Zelda novice, but like, you're not.
No, I think I've played most of them. Maybe not like the early ones. Like I played Oracle of Ages. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Okay, so you're over medium.
Over medium.
Yeah. You're over
medium over easy.
yeah. I'm hard boiled. Like
hard boiled. Yeah, I would say you are. I mean, your profile picture is
Link. Yeah, I'm a hard boiled Zelda fan. But yeah, you're so you're well established Zelda understanding. So
yeah.
The biggest break there with the weapons breaking, everybody was like sad because they would fall in love with these weapons, and then you would just watch them get destroyed. And it was a great mechanic because it forced you to run and find stuff all the time and to pick fights all the time to get more weapons. But it also, like, they swapped it to a positive mechanic this time. So now you actually find all these garbage weapons and you have to fuse certain boss parts together. Mm-hmm. So you still have to kill enemies and get awesome things and find stuff.
That's good.
But you fuse them and you create these cool weapons. So now you have an opportunity. And the weapons, if you like do something really neat where you see this like big horn of something and it looks like an awesome blade and you put it on this two-handed hilt of a rusty thing and it suddenly turns into this awesome two-handed sword and you're like, sweet, and you get a reward for it and you happily use it till it breaks. Just the breaking's still in there.
That's such a great example, man. They're really like I think Nintendo has like kept their classic game development ideals. Like most AAA development teams will be like, they make the first version of the IP. Like, I don't know. I hate to use Halo so much, but the Halo 1.
Yeah, you're hard-boiled Halo.
That has a big influence in my life. But they put out Halo 1, right? And then it was great. And then they were like, for the second one, they weren't like, how can we revolutionize Halo? No, they didn't do that. They were like, how can we make this one better? How can we? What are people saying about the first one, and what they don't like about it, and how? But it's like today that doesn't happen. Like it's either they put out literally the same exact thing with all the same problems, or they change it so much that it's not even the same IP. I think Breath of the Wild is doing a good job of like improving upon an already good game.
Yeah, yeah. So I was there 3,000 years ago when Halo 1 swapped to Halo 2. And I missed Halo 1 mechanics, but I loved the online play. Now, I know there was technically an online play for Halo 1, but we're not talking about that. I did LAN. I actually networked Xboxes together with friends, but real online play, that was pretty crazy. Like that was like a new, like it wasn't new it wasn't the first game to do that, but it was really kind of introduced it to me at least. But like it was really cool, it was awesome, but it didn't, I felt like there was a loss. Like there was a refining, and some things were better and some things were just like lost to me in Halo 2. Which I think a lot of people think Halo 2 is the better version, like the definitive version. But
I would say they would both stand for themselves, but yes, maybe I think the common consensus would be that Halo 2 is the improved version of CE.
Right. And I can see that in a lot of ways too. There's a lot of just cleaner mechanics and cleaner gameplay. A little less rock, paper, scissors, immediate rock, paper, scissors. I love the fact, though, that Elites just had a giant freaking head, so you could just snipe them from anywhere. And so, like, about 3 months in, no one could play Elites because they were like,
they jumped higher.
Which compensated not. Because the first thing I was taught to do is stop jumping. I used to think, like, I was like, hey, if I jump, they'll miss me, then I would die. And then somebody told me, they're like,
no, what are you talking about? You're supposed to bunny rabbit yourself everywhere and crouch repeatedly.
Yeah, if you're crouching at random points while you're jumping, that kind of move would be different. But like, I was just doing a standard arc. Jump, press forward on analog stick. So they're like, trace the parabola, bullseye. And that's, I learned the hard way. That was a no bueno way to play online multiplayer. There's 3 tiers to the open world map. It was already a giant open world map. I haven't seen like all the open world games, so I couldn't tell you like if it's one of the biggest, but I do know that it like stands as a grand open world map, like one of the larger open world maps. And now it has a whole set of sky islands and a whole set of the depths, and there is no loading screen in between any of these things. You can jump off a sky island, paraglide, and navigate to like a giant chasm in the overworld, and jump down a cave that goes like, it feels like 10,000 feet deep, and then you're in this like giant chasm of a world underneath the other world.
Man, they're using some like architecture ideologies there. Like, why build out when we can build up and down?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they were like, we don't need to add more map. We just need to have layers to the map, which is a common, like, going back to the roots. That's what, when Zelda design was, like, laid out in the manual, it was like overworld, underworld. And that's what they called it. Like, the dungeons were the underworld, and the game was the overworld. And Zelda, sad to say it has officially left my ideology of what I feel a Zelda game should be, but that is not a bad thing. It's a weird feeling though, because on one hand, they are not the game I was imagining I wanted anymore, but they're creating a game that is just freaking amazing and awesome. And if I'm adult about it and let go of like my preconceived ideology of what it should be, I'm like, man, this is one of the greatest games of all time. So,
yeah, just kind of let it stand for itself.
Yes, like it's not what I was hoping they would do, but it's amazing, and I'm just gonna have to just eat what's served to me. It's like I was ordering a steak, and they made a really nice chicken Alfredo, and I was like, I was wanting steak, but gosh, this is a really, really great chicken Alfredo. Like, I think I'm gonna order it again.
Like you can't be mad about it.
Yeah. This is the best mistake of my life.
Yeah, that's kind of how, to a lesser degree, I felt about No Man's Sky. Like, I was excited about No Man's Sky, but I didn't really like fall into all the hype. You know, I watched Sean from Hello Games talk about the game, right? And like since I'm a programmer, I kind of like understand the limitations of like what he meant by that, you know? Like he was like, "Oh, there's billions and billions of galaxies that or of planets that you can explore." You know, I'm like, what does it actually mean? You know, like, is there like a couple variations or, you know, but I was excited to try it out because no one's done it before, you know? So like I was more excited about the technology behind what they were building, instead of like the game and the grandeur of what they were saying, you know?
I get that.
So like I really enjoyed No Man's Sky when it came out, and nobody else did. It was like the biggest flop in video game history ever. And then, well, not now, because they've just like stuck to their guns and just kept putting out updates for free for years now.
Right, but the game just needed to get to the game they promised just needed 10 more years of work.
Yes, no, I totally agree that they were like promising more than what they were about to put out. But I mean, I don't know. As a developer, I can like understand how that happens and look past that. You know, I don't know.
Right. Well, and that makes sense to be excited for the technology, dude. Because like, I mean, so being a game developer kind of ruins video games for you in a certain way. Because on one hand, you can enjoy it deeper, because you were playing that game and you were having this deep enjoyment out of understanding this like procedural generation process.
Yes.
And like that's great that like you could enjoy something about the game that not no one else, that's not true, but that you know only a subset of the population can really enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm playing Breath of the Wild and I'm like, as they like hide the loading in the chasms, when it loads the underworld, I'm like, genius, genius level loading. Genius.
Yeah.
Just genius. And like the LOD swaps, like sometimes when like the entire world is always an LOD, and like that's how they do it, is like there's this giant low res mesh that is the entire world that you can always see, and then they like pop in the high res stuff as you go. And so that's how you can see across the map. But the thing is you can see dragons flying on the other side of the freaking map, and they're shadows. So with all the LOD, whatever, their shadow will high res like pass over you, and
that's cool.
This is just insane as well. In the kind of joy and confusion and shock and pain that only a game developer can feel. Breath of the Wild, for sure, and Tears of the Kingdom, they're mobile games.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Isn't it like it's like
no? How? Because like you and me, we develop for Quest, and that's a challenge in itself to optimize for that, because it's basically a phone strapped to your face.
Yes. The challenge is undersell, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like the amount of detail that they can put into Switch games, like it's pretty insane. I mean, the Switch hardware is pretty insane too, like what it can do.
Oh yeah,
same with the Steam Deck. Jesus.
Yeah, that as well. Both of those. So it's a little too forgiving to say it's a mobile game. A little too
right, because it's not running on like
your phone.
On a phone.
Yeah,
it's like a souped up phone.
Yeah, but again, like the fact that it's not much more than a souped up phone, and it's running this giant open world, 3-tiered dynamic level loading, shadows passing across the sky map. It's like just oof. I can't wait till people start doing some technical breakdowns of how it works, because so one of the things we can't do in Quest that they can do in with Breath of the Wild is lean heavy into a deferred renderer. And here's a very interesting technical piece on why. Because a deferred renderer is actually better than a forward renderer for that kind of game, with tons of light sources and lots of different render passes. By separating the render passes out, they're able to like really really dial in on how much per frame is actually processed. And so they're actually able to throw away a lot of unnecessary information on the fly or hyper focus on certain information on the fly by having a really complicated rule of like 15 or 20 passes per frame. And they, yeah, it's a really.
Wait, so what's the difference between the two?
Now, forward renderer renders everything all by the points of light, and it doesn't. It renders it all to the camera in one pass.
Okay.
And so what happens is it's faster than a deferred renderer in certain scenarios when there's no movable light specifically.
Okay.
So that's why when all the shadows are baked and there's no movable lights, which are quest rules, right? The forward renderer is actually faster than a deferred renderer, but it can quickly become slower than a deferred renderer, because when you add too many light sources and stuff, just the way the math works out, there's an actual equation. I'll share it with you off podcast when I find it again. But there's an equation where like there's a point where like suddenly the forward renderer is no longer faster and it's actually way slower, tremendously slower. It just doesn't scale right. And that's how they can have that big dynamic lights, moving shadows, tons of post processing, and they can do it all with like 25 render passes. But and the reason for VR we're locked for the forward renderer is because the way the math works, a deferred renderer has to multiply all of that per eye.
Oh.
So
so it's doing so if it's doing like 10 passes to render it instead of one, then it would have to do 20, and that's a lot. Yes. And then it has to do it at 120 to produce heads.
Yeah, and it has to do it like 72 to 90 frames a second. And while so like the math it's really interesting because when you see the math laid out, you're like, oh, I can see how that would clearly make deferred renderer faster in scenario A and clearly make forward rendering faster in scenario B. Really demystified it for me. I'll send you that video.
Thanks for reminding me to go bake all my lights.
Yes.
My maps.
Oh, goodness gracious. Those map light bakes in the level I know you're talking about are horrid.
Yeah, I have it on production, and it just like breaks. Like what? I don't even.
No, I tried it. I tried it on a big one, man.
With those models,
it's what the light map resolution isn't high enough, and it will dump you'll screw up the quest memory if you do that.
Yeah. Okay, that's probably the issue that I'm having with the environment itself. Just doesn't have a texture on quest, and I was assuming because it was running out of memory.
Yeah, right. And that's why I made that removing NPC thing. And then again, and Breath of the Wild has like 100 NPCs per thing, and they're all running a very complicated AI. Speaking about that engine, man. So it's only better for Tears of the Kingdom, but my son likes this streamer called Mr. A Game. Actually, I like him too. Have you seen Mr. A Game?
Have not.
A tier streamer, just like use of memes, impeccable. Also, family friendly. So like, just
great.
He's wonderful. He's just wonderful. And so he was playing this mod of Breath of the Wild, and the mod let you like spawn monsters in weird spots, which let him get a bunch of monsters into Kakariko Village. And the AI is so well treed out that even though there's not really a scenario where you can, I mean, I'm sure there could be a scenario, but there's not really a scenario where monsters should make their way inside of Kakariko Village.
Mm-hmm.
When they did, the AI responded like monsters were in the village, and they all started running and hiding or trying to fight back.
What?
Like they would. And one of the things that happened is like the shopkeeper girl in front of the shop ran and tripped and fell on her face while she was running, and then got back up and kept running.
Okay, so that just means that they have a base class for the AI, right?
Yes, a very
just
robust
has
base
those
class.
Functions where if a monster comes in the vicinity, then that's what happens.
Yes.
So, but that's abstract programming, or even you could even call it object oriented, but like
Right.
they
I like abstract better than
have
object oriented.
yeah,
Weird reasons, but yeah.
they have this base class for the AI that just has all the functions that a person would do, and then they can just filter out what the specific subclasses of those AI do, depending on the situation. But like, yeah, that's really cool. That beckons back to the making tools instead of, which again goes back to maybe the like object oriented versus like linear programming, where you make classes for things instead of just one like linear solutions for things. So
Right. Well, dude, and the beautiful thing about that is it shows really good gray boxing. Something like that we just we for the game we had to make for work, just for the listeners, we really could have used like a whole year of gray boxing to really do this thing right. And we got about 30 minutes.
yeah.
Great example of like game design done right is how they made the Goose Game, the Untitled Goose Game. Have you heard about that game?
Yeah,
Perhaps.
I like that game.
Me too. Did you know it's multiplayer now?
No.
It's yeah, they released a multiplayer update.
That's awesome.
Yes. It's so now you can double goose on the loose.
Might actually play it instead of watching a streamer play it.
Yeah, grab your wife and play the Goose Game.
Grab your kids, grab your wife.
Hide your kids. From the goose. Everything gets all loosey goosey when everybody talks about the Untitled Goose Game.
What do you mean?
It just turns speech into nothing but goose puns.
I think that's maybe a product of being a dad.
Yeah, that's very true. So let's land the seg on so the way they tested it, the way they made it was they had a goose interact with a dude, and they tweaked the AI until it was just fun to mess with the AI. And they made the AI like they tried making the AI like chase it, tried making the AI like stop the goose, and they like making the AI take things from the goose, and like they like tweaked it until where just messing with the AI and having the AI have a system of like I'm looking for blank, and then like I'm trying to blank, and then the goose could mess with the AI. All they had to do the rest of the game was just taking that gray box and just situationalizing it to create the fun, to like tease the fun out of it and to show the best parts.
Right.
And like that's just such a beautiful, clean example of good game design.
Yeah.
And iterated on it. Like I just love the idea that Mario was nothing but like Mario jumping in a white room. For Mario 64.
At one point he was, yeah.
And they literally they weren't allowed to move on until it was just purely fun to jump around with Mario in a white room.
Yeah, who was it? Were you telling me about that? How they adjusted the like jump height for Mario or something like that, and oh man, I don't know. I thought you were the one that were telling me about that, and they were like, no, you have to change it back. Like, you need to.
Oh no, I didn't hear about that.
I'll have to. I can't remember the full story, but it was pretty interesting.
Well, messing with Mario's jump height sounds like it sounds like messing with the national anthem or something.
Yeah,
like it's just you don't do that.
Can you imagine how different the levels would be if they just cut Mario's jump height in half?
Oh gosh,
they would have to change all the levels. And I think that was the point, was that like they would have to change all the go back and change all the levels since they adjusted the jump height or something like that. So there is a really good example of
tools design, that's something that me and you talk about at work a lot. That that I think is a great thing that game designers should do. That we wish we had more time to do it right. It was a similar concept to what you're talking about. The game had like a set slope height, um, for ledges, like what ledges that could be grabbed on. And when they changed that, they had the system dependent on each other. So it automatically, as they tweaked that slope height, it automatically tweaked all the slope heights. So like they all, if it was supposed to be a slope height that could be grabbed, that's what it was called. It was called a grabbable slope, and then it would like be grab, like it would just like go to the right height and like work with the system instead of it, having to be tweaked by like having some peon go in and go move all these variables up 0.7.
Yeah, no, they knew what the like what the game was going to be, so they kind of, I don't know, whenever you're building in Unreal Engine, for instance, or any engine, you kind of like set up an engine within the engine for yourself.
Yeah,
that's
if you're doing
specific
it right
to your game, and then just expand on that. So
that's what I feel
sounds
like.
like that's what was going on there.
Just to trash the Unity devs for a second, alienate probably the majority of our possible listener base. No, I'm not gonna say Unity's great. There's nothing wrong with Unity. It's just different. One of the things that makes it different is Unreal has just really good tools to, like, they imagine a world where there's a bunch of programmers making tools for designers. And you would think like, oh, I don't need that because I'm both. And you're like, no. It's great because you can put on your programmer hat, knowing where you're going to go design-wise, and program yourself the perfect tool. That, remember we made we made a booth system and a coffee cup system, and like we made like a cup, like we would make our own little design tools. And then there's just a part where it's just like we had to make that giant multiplayer VR coffee shop. That's all I'm going to say. And when we did that, we were just like, I just got to spend a day just dragging and dropping everything in, and then it all worked. Like, well, except for the audio thing, but then it all just worked. And like, because all the
good programmers make tools for designers and then use them themselves.
Yes, that's what's so great about being an indie dev.
Yeah.
I think apps have like a baby teeth. Okay. I think every app kind of has a gums, baby teeth approach.
Yes.
And like, I think people, when they're gumming through it, are worried about how they're gonna build the permanent teeth. And it's kind of like, no, just gum through it and then make your baby teeth. And your baby teeth is your actual design tools, and then refine your design tools as you refine your design. And then you'll end up with your permanent teeth code.
Gumming it, toothing it, biting it out. Honestly, I want to build stuff. But you talked about like being able to jump from sky islands, and I imagined building a giant like ramp that just goes from a sky island to the ground, and then like ramps off. And then you can get on your motorcycle that I know you can get now, I'm pretty sure, right? I saw a post about that.
You can build a motorcycle. You can build 100 versions of the motorcycle.
Yeah. Get a motorcycle, go on a floaty island, build a giant slope, and then put a ramp at the bottom.
That just might be possible. That's like the equivalent of the cheese wheel, Skyrim cheese wheel.